Welcome to Basketball Cinema, where we revisit the most important and iconic games in NBA history. I'm Jay Canada, and today we're looking at Game 7 of the 2019 East Semifinals between the Toronto Raptors and Philadelphia 76ers. This is the first non-NBA Finals game we're covering here on the channel, but trust me when I say it's absolutely worth the time, both for its entertainment on the court and of course the ensuing impact off it. This second round matchup pitted the upstart Philadelphia 76ers led by young star talent Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, against the Toronto Raptors, who finished the season with the NBA's second best record and were looking to exercise their playoff demons. The Raptors were led on the court by Kawhi Leonard, who gave a now historic speech prior to the game to really get his squad prepared for Game 7. Nope, I'm kidding, of course. Kawhi's like a young Lloyd Dobler. He doesn't say anything. Regardless of his lack of vocal presence, Kawhi was in the process of cementing himself as one of the NBA's most elite players, as through 11 postseason games, he was averaging 31 a game on 56% from the field. Combined with 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards already in his trophy case, Kawhi was making life difficult on opponents, but he was simplifying things for his head coach.
He gets you 30, right? And then anywhere upwards from that. But there's moments when he can just decide you're not scoring either, or I'm going to take it from you, or something like that. And I think that's a pretty amazing thing.
But would he continue doing amazing things on the court in Toronto following the 2019 playoffs? That was a question looming large for most Hoops fans during the Raptors' playoff run, as Kawhi hadn't signed a contract extension after being traded from San Antonio to the Raptors in July of 2018. Obviously for Kawhi, the game of basketball has always been strictly business. It's not personal. But that didn't stop speculation about where Kawhi would play the following season, from being at an all-time high ahead of what could have been a season-ending Game 7.
If Toronto doesn't win this game, I think Kawhi Leonard is definitely gone. Now, he's probably gone anyway, but I think he's definitely gone if they don't win this game, and they know that.
The Raps weren't just Kawhi Leonard, however. Kyle Lowry and Serge Ibaka remained from the teams that had fallen short in the playoffs against LeBron James and the Cavaliers 3 straight seasons, while Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet were emerging, and deadline acquisition Marc Gasol had solidified the Raptors' frontcourt. Where Toronto teams of years past seemed snake-bitten come playoff time, head coach Nick Nurse truly didn't care for any comparisons with his group in 2019.
I don't think the past has really anything to do with this team. I know it's always there for historical data and we need to compare and stuff, but I don't or won't or can't.
I mentioned the young talent on the 76ers roster a bit earlier, but in addition to Embiid and Simmons, Philly had a truly deep roster, at least top-heavy, including Tobias Harris, JJ Redick, and enigmatic all-star Jimmy Butler, who was acquired via trade earlier in the season. Both Butler and Harris, in fact, were traded for in season, with Philly giving up significant assets, signaling that indeed this wasn't the process 76ers anymore. They were all in on the 2019 season, and the playoffs were certainly full of hope. After dispatching the Brooklyn Nets in 5 games, Philly was giving Toronto all they could handle in the second round, pushing the series to a 7th and final game after a 112-101 win in Game 6 on their home floor. Game 7, however, was to be played north of the border in Toronto, where the Raptors went 32-9 during the regular season, a seemingly large feat to overcome for the 76ers, who were sub 500 on the road themselves, and had to compete with the hottest player in the league.
Kawhi is the consistent one out of all of these big names. He's the guy I bet on more than any of these players, and as good as Philly look, again at home, I don't trust him on the road, especially in a Game 7.
Both teams were in deep ahead of Game 7 of the East Semifinals in 2019. The 76ers had mortgaged future assets to field the lineup we're about to see, while the Raptors had dealt a franchise icon for all the uncertainty that came with the Kawhi Leonard experience. For which team did things play out favorably? Why don't you all join me up here in the beautiful country of Canada so we can find out. The only thing better than a Game 7 in the NBA playoffs is a Game 7 called by the legend Kevin Harlan. Kevin Harlan Hive, stand up! It's a total cliche, but the Scotiabank Arena was electric for this game. Have a listen.
And fronted by Green. And a Gasol rebound.
Yeah, good execution there, though.
In a surprising turn of events, Pascal Siakam went to a spin move on the Raptors' first possession. His miss was cleaned up by Kawhi for his first hoop. First strategic point to note, look at how the Raptors defend Ben Simmons in transition. 3 white jerseys swarm him at the free throw line, forcing him to kick out for another early Embiid miss. Building a wall became the Raps' calling card defensively in 2019, and it was necessary. Simmons killed Toronto with 21 points in Game 6. In typical Game 7 fashion, both teams started this battle extremely tight, as Kawhi Leonard missed a wide open look from 3, and Joel Embiid continued his slow start. Kawhi broke the mold by getting an easy one with his left hand at the rim, and Siakam Euro-stepped Embiid with pure silk to put the Raps up a quick 6. I cannot stress enough just how ugly this game was to start. Joel missed his 4th consecutive shot, Redick was off on his first attempt to make the Sixers 0 for 9, then this possession from hell for the Toronto Raptors.
Game 7s, they're so heavily anticipated because guys are tight. It's so intense.
Siakam spins on Tobias Harris.
I mean, yikes. Finally getting the 76ers on the board was JJ Redick sweetly stroking a long-range bomb, and let me just say, this was a huge 2 weeks or so for sleeve tattoos on white dudes. Here you've got JJ Redick in the NBA playoffs. You also had the release of Avengers Endgame just before this game, featuring our guy Clint Barton doing his best Michael Schofield cosplay. Joel Embiid simply couldn't find the mark from anywhere on the court in the early going. But thankfully, well, the Raptors, they were struggling too. Watch this sequence from Ben Simmons blocking a Danny Green pull-up jumper on one end before slashing to the rim off one dribble from half court. He even made both free throws to boot. The glow up for one Fred VanVleet over the past couple seasons has been something special, considering he played just a shade over 15 minutes in Game 7, and these 2 free throws were 2 of his just 4 points on the evening. Kawhi wasn't great in the first quarter, shooting 3 for 9 from the field, but in traditional Kawhi two-way dominance, a perfectly timed strip of a double handoff leading to an easy flush on the other end, re-establishing the Raptors' lead. Oh my goodness, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. Everybody stay calm.
Stay calm! Wait. Everybody calm down!
Oh, don't worry, it's just Mike Scott checking into the game. Mike knew exactly what to do as he entered the game, but in a much more real sense, he had no idea what to do, as he bricked a deep 3. Moments later, however, instead of using both bullets to shoot Toby twice, Mike Scott used one of them to convert his only basket of the game. Seriously, these office puns, I could go all day. That's what she said. Joel Embiid finally got on the board in this one and finally got Philadelphia into double figures with an uncontested lay-in. But a couple of inexperienced mistakes to close the quarter for the 76ers, as Ben Simmons put Kawhi on the line unnecessarily after boxing him up defensively. Then they failed to recover a rebound, leading to Serge Ibaka putting in a pair of freebies of his own. Fortunately, Jimmy Butler got on the board for the first time, an acrobatic layup at the rim to bring Philly within 5 to close an ugly first quarter. In his between-quarter interview, Philly head coach Brett Brown pointed out something I touched on just moments ago: rebounding.
When you look at the things that have hurt us, offensive rebounds, odd turnovers, at least to their transition.
It really was something that I noticed immediately. Not rebounding specifically, but the sheer amount of length on both sides of the court in this battle. For large chunks of the game, including to begin the second quarter, the Raps were running Siakam, Ibaka, Gasol all together, and were really able to neutralize the 76ers' length, which should have been an advantage.
Not a good look, and then Ibaka comes down and able to knock down that triple.
That shot was Serge Ibaka's first three-point make of the series, and the first conversion for the Raps in Game 7 after starting 0 for 8 from deep. Hey, there's a nice rebound, as Joel Embiid finally got the better of Marc Gasol down low with a tap-in. Game 7 finally opened up offensively for both sides 3 minutes into the quarter. James Ennis with a confident stroke from the corner for Philly, Siakam Lowry working the pick and roll to perfection to answer back, prime JJ Redick evading Siakam to splash a pull-up 3, and Kawhi Leonard manhandling Joel Embiid to convert a tough and one. We aren't done, y'all. Kawhi summoning his inner Michael Jordan on Karl Malone by ripping an unsuspecting Joel Embiid to set up yet another fast break flush. Simmons with his first basket of the game, Siakam with a midi, and Ben with a nifty post hook to close this frenetic stretch of play. I was literally forgetting what good offense looked like as I was watching this game. Let's back up just a second so I can point something out. Kyle Lowry injured his thumb in Game 7. As you can see, he actually left the court entirely in the second quarter. Kyle Lowry is a player who takes a lot of heat around the league for being overrated or a flopper or whatever, but he averaged 15.7 assists a game in the 2019 playoffs while battling a thumb injury, which eventually got diagnosed as a sprained thumb. Lowry also averaged over 20 a game in consecutive seasons earlier in his career. Listen, I'm just trying to say Kyle Lowry probably deserves a smidge more respect league-wide than he's given. After that fiery stretch of offense for both teams, the second quarter really sagged for the next 3 minutes, as there was 9 straight free throw attempts. which, I mean, nobody wants to see free throws, am I right? But this quick lay-in from James Ennis gave the Sixers a lead for the first time in an eternity, and Tobias Harris extended that lead to 4 with a straightaway triple. It was a nice little stretch actually from Harris. As the Raps committed to doubling Joel Embiid, Philly needed someone else to create a shot. Bad thumb and all, Kyle Lowry got his Raps back on even footing with a slick connection from the corner. Key play from Marc Gasol to take a charge on Jimmy Butler. Hang time, y'all, you know what I'm saying? Nice finish from Kawhi, yeah, I'm not sure what that was. And to close the half, more Kyle Lowry.
The other way with a drive and a 2. What a play!
Earlier in the broadcast, TNT ran a clip of Joel Embiid giving his thoughts on Kawhi Leonard.
You gotta get the ball out of his hands. He's been going crazy this whole series. You know, I'd rather have someone else on the team beat us.
And Joel was 100% correct. Kawhi had gone crazy in the series. He was averaging 34 a game in the first 6 games. As for making someone else beat them in Game 7, well, Philly wasn't about to get their wish. And this was evident in the third quarter. Kawhi finished with 11 points in the frame, not bad, but on a remarkable 14 shot attempts. At one point in the proceedings, the Rap star missed 6 consecutive shots, so yeah, it certainly wasn't a masterpiece. But you absolutely have to respect the leave it all on the floor mindset from Kawhi in Game 7. The good side of that shooting mentality from Kawhi shone through early in the third, as he finished in the paint for his first score of the quarter. He also converted what was a rare mid-range jumper from the free throw line. The Raps would actually take control with a 9-point lead 3 minutes into the quarter, but the 76ers had another quick answer. JJ a gorgeous stroke from deep after an effective pump fake, Tobias Harris with a confident pull and transition from the land beyond, Joel Embiid with a converted and one after a tough finish around Siakam, and Jimmy Butler capped the run with a short jumper to give Philly their first lead of the second half. Combined with that Philly run was the bad side of the shooting mentality from Kawhi Leonard. He dried up in a big way for the Raps, as I mentioned moments ago, 6 field goal misses in a row, and you can see the sheer difficulty of the shots he was attempting. Whether inside or out, either Ben Simmons or Jimmy Butler was constantly draped all over the claw. I think Charles Barkley actually broke down the reason for the sheer volume of Kawhi shots pretty well.
And the thing that bothered me about Toronto, their guys were afraid.
Well, yeah, they were
turning down wide open shots.
They were second guessing wide open.
They got to give it to their guy. No, Shaq, you got to shoot those
shots.
shots.
I wouldn't necessarily echo the sentiment that the other Raps were afraid, but they certainly weren't pressing to find shots for themselves. While Kawhi was shooting a lot and missing a lot, the 76ers were able to take a legitimate lead in the game, going up in fact by 7 points, their biggest lead of the night. However, this time the Raps were the side with the answer. Serge Ibaka and Kawhi finally finding a pair of easy baskets, Kawhi with one of his 2 3-point makes on the night.
3, Leonard!
And to close the third quarter, a couple more easy layups for Serge Ibaka, who finished the game with 17 points on 6 of 10 shooting. And shout out to Ibaka, by the way. He was the Raps' second leading scorer for the game, the only Raptor to shoot better than 50% from the field in the game. Wow. Into the fourth quarter of Game 7 we go, where Marc Gasol splashed his lone 3-ball of the night to give the Raps a 4-point cushion in the early stages. Ben Simmons answered with a physical Euro step in transition, but Serge Ibaka wasn't fazed by the bump he took, cold-bloodedly knocking down a jab step 3-ball from the corner right in Simmons' face. But at long last, we get a look at and get to discuss one Jimmy Butler of the Philadelphia 76ers. Game 7 wasn't Jimmy's greatest statistical performance ever, but with things hanging in the balance in the fourth quarter, it wasn't Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons who took the reins for this young Philly team. It was the man they called Jimmy G Buckets. He stepped back in Marc Gasol's grill to finally nail a 3-pointer. He then stepped back again in Marc Gasol's grill to convert a tough 2-pointer. Jimmy's approach changed in the fourth quarter. He became the star when his team needed it most. Embiid, who started 0 for 5 from 3-point range, hit a large shot to give his 76ers the lead out of the timeout, but that was quickly answered by a tough fadeaway from Kyle Lowry to beat the shot clock buzzer. That would be Lowry's final basket of Game 7, but I seriously can't stress enough how important the little things Lowry did throughout the game played a role. Earlier in the fourth, he threw a body in front of a charging Ben Simmons, maybe flop, but drew a foul nonetheless. This just minutes after taking a charge on Joel Embiid to end the third quarter. We'll see Kyle pop up with a few more unheralded plays as this game nears its close. And again, I have to say it, my guy Kyle Lowry was wildly valuable to this Raptors team. But for as much value as Lowry brought, for as key a contributor as Serge Ibaka was, for as much as Jimmy Butler stepped up for the 76ers, nobody had a hand in writing the story of Game 7 quite like Kawhi Leonard. With the Raptors down a point, Kawhi engineered an 8-2 run for his team all by himself.
Leonard with a 3. Good!
A straightaway three re-established the Raps' lead. This was followed by him confidently nailing another midi at long last, and the run of dominance was capped with a tough and one finish over Ben Simmons, giving Toronto some much needed breathing room with a 5-point gap, giving Kawhi Leonard 35 points on the night. But stop me if you've heard this before. The Philadelphia 76ers had an answer. After Jimmy Butler converted a pair of free throws to make it a 3-point game, JJ Redick and his sleeve tattoo poured in an and one deep 2-point jumper, tying the game back up at 85. Redick had 17 points in Game 7 and was clearly a key cog in unlocking the potential of this 76ers roster. Allow me to back up though for just a moment again, as I'd be remiss if I didn't point out one of the biggest storylines from this Game 7, something I haven't explicitly pointed out quite yet. Marc Gasol did an absolute number on Joel Embiid throughout this entire game. I've shown some of the good moments from Embiid to this point in the video, but for the game, the 76ers big man shot just 6 for 18 and 1 of 6 from deep. Gasol was daring him to shoot from the perimeter, which proved a successful strategy. And time and again, when Embiid tried to pump and drive off the line, Gasol matched him step for step. Joel wasn't outright awful in Game 7, he finished with 21 points, but Marc Gasol absolutely made him work for every single inch. In addition to his subtle work on Embiid throughout the game, Gasol also made one of the best plays of the entire game with just over 2 minutes remaining, as he switched onto Jimmy Butler and not only cut off a potential driving lane, he blocked Butler's 3-point attempt. I mean, that's pretty impressive. The Raps had gone roughly 3 minutes without scoring when Kawhi appeared to bang a huge 3-ball. While it was still a big shot to say the least, it was ruled a 2-pointer eventually to give the Raps a 2-point lead. For all the slander I levied towards Kawhi for his poor shooting performance, to this point in the fourth quarter, he was 5 for 6 from the field. The man was getting it done when it mattered most. The 76ers had a chance to answer with under 90 seconds remaining.
Here's Harris, shot clock at 2, doubled, knocked away, stolen by Lowry, 2-on-1, Siakam!
My word, Kyle Lowry really does do everything right. A huge steal from Lowry as the shot clock was winding down, and even though he had a very poor game overall, that was a big time finish in transition by Pascal Siakam to give the Raps a 4-point lead. Jimmy Butler made 1 of 2 free throws on the ensuing possession to bring the 76ers to within 3. After Kawhi Leonard missed a very tough jumper over Jimmy Butler, Serge Ibaka secured another Rapso board. And watch Nick Nurse try to call the timeout here. I legitimately thought he was going to tackle Scott Foster in that moment. Out of the timeout, the Raps were unable to find a quality look as Kawhi missed another impossible attempt from deep, and with 24 seconds remaining, it was Philly ball down 3. It was an extremely messy possession that followed, as Kyle Lowry nearly made another wildly impactful defensive play, stripping Joel Embiid. Embiid recovered and drew a ticky-tack foul call on Serge Ibaka. He would convert both free throws. The strategy of going for 2 by the 76ers proved to be a wise decision, as Kawhi Leonard missed the second of his free throws, giving Philadelphia a shot to tie the game with just 10 seconds left.
2-point game. Here comes Butler driving. Layup is good. He ties the game.
Look how important free throws are, y'all. Philly didn't have a timeout remaining, so regardless of the situation, they had to make their way down court following the free throws. And Jimmy Butler, man, big time play by a big time player. While I wouldn't dream of faulting Jimmy Butler for scoring too early in that situation, the Toronto Raptors were left with 4 seconds on the clock and a chance to win Game 7.
It's off to Leonard, defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger? Game! Series! Toronto has won!
Okay, first of all, the shot was cool, yeah, but can we take a moment to appreciate Kevin Harlan? What a perfect call of a gigantic NBA moment. I mean, that's how it's done. Oh, right, the shot itself, yeah, okay. I assume a lot of you watching are like me and have probably seen this shot from Kawhi about a million times since it happened. The term unbelievable gets thrown around way too much in sports, but this shot really is just that. Kawhi getting the shot off clean over an outstretched Joel Embiid seemed extremely improbable on its own. And for a potential game winner to bounce on the rim in the fashion this shot did, taking what seemed like an eternity to eventually settle, I mean, that's just special drama that the NBA does better than any other sport. I rewatched the play about 20 times while making this video, trying to unearth any nugget about the strategy of this play to share with you all, and I've got to be honest, I've got nothing. The 76ers had the correct personnel on the floor to defend. Joel Embiid switched on to Kawhi and defended him perfectly in my opinion. The only person I'd even start to criticize on the play is Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he had Pascal Siakam wide open with enough time for a pass and shot, but like, I'm not gonna be the idiot who says Kawhi probably should have passed. No. In fact, the most interesting tidbit about this epic shot was broken down by Kawhi Leonard himself post-game, when he alluded to a moment in the first round of the 2019 playoffs when he and the Raps were in an almost identical situation.
Raptors down 3. Leonard, a deep one, is short.
And just how did that experience translate to this spot?
He drew up the play again tonight. It was 4 seconds left, and I believe that, like I said, remembering that moment, I knew I had some time to try to get some space rather than just catch and shoot the ball.
Credit to Nick Nurse for trusting his process to try and get a quality look. Credit to Kawhi Leonard for having that on-court awareness. Not everyone, however, was as excited about the shot in the moment as most intelligent human beings were.
That shot was 1,000% luck. That was simply the luckiest shot that ever fell to win a playoff game. Ever, ever, ever.
Oh, Skip, anti-Kawhi. You just refuse to be on the right side of history with your ridiculous takes that—
I am back! What it do, baby?
Wait a minute. Skip was the biggest anti-Kawhi person in the media during the summer of 2019. He can't just change his take like 2 years later. No, dude, that was like 4 months later. 4 months later? He just became the biggest Kawhi supporter 4 months later. Okay then. I also really enjoyed Philly head coach Brett Brown giving his assessment of the Kawhi shot.
I really felt when it hit the rim that it was going to end up going in. It didn't surprise me that it went in.
Does it smell like cap in here to anybody else? Kawhi Leonard's game winner in Game 7 of the 2019 Eastern Conference semifinals was a true, you'll never forget where you were when you saw it moment in NBA history, and it thrust the Raps through to the East Finals and sent Joel Embiid crying off the court. Earlier in the video, I played a clip of Stephen A. Smith saying he was confident Kawhi Leonard would leave the Raptors had they lost Game 7 against Philadelphia. Knowing that Kawhi eventually did leave Toronto just a couple months later means Stephen A. was probably right, and this game was truly one of monumental consequence for the Raptors. The Raptors couldn't get over the hump with their core led by DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. So in the summer of 2018, they acquired Kawhi Leonard for what now seems like pennies on the dollar and went all in on the 2019 season. There was truly no backup plan for the franchise had they flamed out again in the playoffs and seen Kawhi walk out the front door. It was the definition of a high-risk, high-reward move, and as we know, it eventually worked out like gangbusters. Game 7 against Philadelphia was the tipping point in the Raptors' championship run. Beating Orlando in the first round was a foregone conclusion, but as outlined in this video, the 76ers had legitimately positioned themselves to make a run to the finals in 2019. They gave the Raps absolutely everything they could handle. In the ensuing 2 rounds of the playoffs, Toronto never found themselves on the brink figuratively or literally as they did come Game 7 of the second round against Philadelphia. Speaking of the 76ers, in some ways they were the worst case scenario Raptors following the end to their season. Okay, maybe not worst case scenario, but things didn't work out as planned. Like Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler reportedly rejected a max contract offer from the 76ers in the offseason, choosing not to run it back for another crack at playoff success. Philly would move Butler to the Miami Heat in a sign and trade shortly thereafter and watch from the sidelines as Jimmy led Miami to the NBA Finals in 2020. Unlike the Raptors, Philly was at least able to salvage some assets for their departed star, but also unlike the Raps, pushing all their chips into the middle didn't result in a championship in 2019. It's obviously not doom and gloom for the Philadelphia 76ers moving forward, however, as they remain a contender in the Eastern Conference for what would seem to be years to come. And there's no denying, even in a losing effort, the big game experience garnered by both Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons is an invaluable piece of information. In fact, now dismissed head coach Brett Brown said exactly that of his young, atypical point guard.
Ben's defensive effort and commitment to trying to guard Kawhi Leonard will serve him well. It too will be a memory, I'm certain, that will help better shape his approach, his understanding of playoff basketball.
Ben Simmons has developed into arguably the NBA's best defender, while Joel Embiid has become a legitimate MVP threat. Or maybe he's already won an MVP if you're watching this from the future. For each game covered on Basketball Cinema, I'll be giving out 3 awards, beginning with the Clint Hawkeye Barton Award for Most Underrated Performer.
I don't care.
Which goes to Marc Gasol. Yes, Serge Ibaka hit some huge shots and was the Raps' second leading scorer, while Kyle Lowry did Kyle Lowry things all night. But Marc Gasol was a joy to watch for what he brought in Game 7. I mentioned earlier how poor Joel Embiid shot from the field as a result of Gasol's defense, and what's crazy is Marc Gasol led the Raptors in time played, logging over 45 minutes of action, matching Embiid beat for beat. Marc also chipped in with 7 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists. The Rick Dalton Award for Most Recognizable Moment goes to, you'd think I'd shout out Kawhi's shot again. It was pretty epic, but where that shot was truly amazing, the moment which has lived on from this game has to be Joel Embiid crying. Unfortunately for our guy Joel, he was caught on the broadcast not only crying, but ugly crying following Kawhi's shot. No judgments, of course. Having emotions is super cool, man. But this moment was instantly a meme, whether as a screenshot or as a clip plugged into every sad montage video on Twitter. And finally, the Mark Jackson,
with all due respect,
Award for Weirdest Moment in this game goes to Kawhi Leonard for this comment he made shortly after Game 7 wrapped up.
I just wanted to go out and leave it all on the floor. This could have been my last game for the season, and
did you hear that? Did you hear that long pause?
This could have been my last game for the season, and
I'm probably misreading things, but it definitely felt like Kawhi knew he was leaving Toronto already, and that pause after last game was a bit of a slip, or just an epic troll, who knows, man. It's Kawhi, he's a mystery. And that's it. The Toronto Raptors beat the Philadelphia 76ers 92-90 in Game 7 of the 2019 East Semifinals on May 12, 2019. A stepping stone for the Raps en route to their first ever NBA championship victory. We may need to revisit this championship Raps team again at some point in the channel. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, please consider dropping a like down below, and if you can see yourself watching a few more of these in the future, I'd suggest hitting that subscribe button, maybe turning on notifications too. Next week we'll be taking our first look into the career of the most iconic basketball player of his generation, who was tragically taken from us way too soon. But until then, I'm Jay Canada, and this has been Basketball Cinema. Joel Embiid with a converted and one finish after a tough... Obviously for Kawhi, the game of basketball has... But at long last, we get a look at and get to discuss one Jimmy Butler. I've shown some of the good moments for Embiid. Oh my word. Well, it was a big shot to say... Not everyone, however, was as excited and...